2 and part 3, you see that there is also an engagement with how have these theoretical conceptual historical issues been implemented in individuals. What used to be progresses? What used to be our faith progresses, which the Constitution doesn't. We can recognize, but there's still a political and positive reality. So you will see that a lot more than the experiential and policy questions. And then, of course, then what lessons have we learned? And I think Professor Nyongo he has given me another topic here, which I will tell some of my students to research on. The flavor question, which has really not been done, not much research has been done on this question of the human resource component of the question. What is the meaning of having some staff seconded from the national government to the devolved units? What are the consequences in the long term, in terms of not just their orientation towards the devolution, but also the fact that you cannot just easily remove them? And if you and also the questions regarding uploaded bureaucracy, etc. So there are so many issues which are emerging, which will still interest us as we read this book. And I just want to congratulate the editor, Dr. Mukosau, and of course also the authors, individual authors, as well as all who have participated in the past, in the present, and into the future in promotion of devolution in Kenya as well as this book. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Abed Sihanya. Let us applaud the professor with some stamina. 1, 2, 3. The professor is very passionate in terms of his discussions, and I think you have seen how diligent he is and is very faithful to the arguments raised. Now, the person I'm going to invite next is basically a fine expert on public policy. So if you are here and you have been bothered about policy, your worries are over. Right? The doctor who knows policy is arriving, and he has been into this devolution for many years. So he's a walking registry of devolution. So allow me to invite Professor Peter Wanyande. Wanyande is a professor of political science and public administration and a fine mind in terms of devolution. Welcome, Prof.
Chair. His Excellency, the Governor of Kisumu County, who was also the keynote speaker on this occasion, Chairman of the National Devolution Commission, Kobia, all the invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I was asked to speak on behalf of the contributors to this book. And I thought that that meant that I would talk about the book. And that is what I'm going to do. First, I want to thank all of you for finding time to participate in the launch of this book, Taking Stock of Devolution in Kenya, particularly during this time when we all avoid or try to avoid physical meetings. It's a demonstration of the value that you attach not only to the launch of the book, but indeed to the significance of this book. A book dealing with issues relating to devolution, which in my view is the major issue in this country today. It's a major issue in this country today because one of the key objectives of devolution was to rid this country of the numerous governance ills that affected Kenya since independence. There was a belief that a lot of the challenges of development in this country had to do with the centralized nature of our governance. And there's reason to believe that that was an accurate assessment. So Kenyans, in their wisdom, engaged with the Guy Commission that was collecting views about what kind of governance system Kenyans wanted. They engaged with that commission, and that commission was able to find what exactly Kenyans wanted. Kenyans may not have said they want devolution. They may not have used the word devolution. But those commissioners, led by Yashpal Gai, understood that what they were talking about was actually devolution as a solution to the problems associated with centralization of governance. And that is why it is important that as we debate devolution, including the debates in the BBI, we must not forget that this was a major objective of devolution, to rid the country of the problems associated with centralization of governance. It can't be anything else, ladies and gentlemen. That's the first general point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make is this. We have had devolution or devolved governance since 2013. To be precise, since March 2013, because that's the first time we held elections in this country under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which introduced a devolved system of governance. And you walk around and you hear people saying there is very little literature, academic literature, on devolution. Scholars are not doing much. Unfortunately, they talk as if doing research, writing and publishing an academic piece is something you wake up in the morning and you send it to a publisher. This book was first conceptualized in 2015 at a meeting of scholars and practitioners, some public servants at Copeland House here in Nairobi. 2015. We are now in 2021. That is when it is coming out. And at that meeting, those present decided that there is need to do research on various aspects of devolution and produce a book that would, among other things, attempt to demystify what devolution is. But more importantly, or equally importantly, to inform not only the general public, but perhaps particularly the political class on what Kenya's model of devolution really means, because this is misunderstood by many people. Even after reading Article 6 of the Constitution, and Article 189 of the Constitution, which are really the articles that define Kenya's model of devolution. They either misunderstand it or choose not to understand it. Article 6.2 says this country is divided into counties. 47 counties, and each county and one national government. These two levels of government are distinct, although interdependent. And they're required to consult each other as they carry out their functions. That is a constitutional provision that actually helps us define the relationship between the county governments and the national government, and therefore, by extension, the devolved system of government that we have adopted in this country. And that is significant because, as Yash Pargai tells us in many of his publications, the Devolution, if you want to define devolution, look at what is provided for in the Constitution that establishes that form of government. You don't just wake up and say devolution is this, because there are different forms and types of devolution. So it is the Constitution that establishes that form of government that helps you understand what devolution is in the Kenyan context, for example. This book attempts to do that in some of the chapters. I think it's about Article 189. Professor Haji was the lawyer, the ones who look at this make reference to the law. Is it 189 that says that when these two levels of government operate or carry their functions, they must respect the institutional integrity of each level of government. Meaning the national government must respect the county level government, and the county level government must also respect the institutional integrity of that level of government. If you combine those, then you understand what this devolution is about in Kenya. So arising from that meeting in 2015, Dr. Mumonzau was asked to coordinate research that would eventually result in a publication of a book on devolution that would help us take stock of devolution in this country. And I must say he did a good job because he contacted a lot of people. Most of them not only agreed to do that research, but actually did the research and produced the papers that are now in this book as chapters. But as you know, in an undertaking of this kind, some will drop out. Some dropped out, one or two. But it was efficient enough and effective enough to replace them. And those who are replaced caught up with the rest and we produced this book in time. Ladies and gentlemen, there are very many books on devolution that have been written by scholars. There are many. The question that we might want to ask is, how does this differ from the others? Because we in the scholarly world always want to say, what is new in what you are doing? When you come up with the publication, the first thing we say, how different is it? What contribution is it making to knowledge in that area? And I want to say, having read virtually all the books that have been written on devolution in this country since 2013, one major difference between this book and the others is that there is a whole part 2. This book is divided into 3 parts. And part 2 addresses issues of devolution in this country from a regional perspective. That is not found in the other books. It recognizes, for example, that the Rift Valley as a region is populous, is diverse. And the issues of devolution in that kind of environment may not be the same as regions in Central Province. It looks at the experience of devolution in Northeastern Province, a region that historically considered itself economically, politically, culturally marginalized. But now they are also being affected by devolution. They'll be affected differently. And so there's a chapter in part 2 that looks at devolution taking into account these different contexts. And this is important. This is extremely important. I have had a chance to read all the chapters in this book, but that is not my role here to do. So, because I want you to read it, so I will not tell you the details. But you need to read them. It is extremely insightful. The chapters are well written. The chapters are well researched. There is a lot of data, and Kenyans will benefit from this book. I want to thank Dr. Mumonzao for editing this book. I want to thank the Horn Institute for publishing this book. And I want to invite all of us to read this book. I hope I've spoken on behalf of the contributors. If I've said something you did not like, I did not consult you, did not restrain me, so you live with it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Wanyande, for wonderful remarks. I told you, and if Professor Wanyande was defending a master's thesis and I was the examiner, I would not only pass him, but upgrade it to PhD. So you can see the significance of that presentation. Then I also want to recognize the chairman and co-founder, Dr. Mustafa Ali. Welcome so much to having hosted that. But allow me to abuse my powers here. There's one of us here that I really want to invite before Dr. Mumonzao comes in. I'm Ayatollah of history. Ayatollah, a walking Ayatollah. Professor Macharia Monene, as I abuse my powers, I want to invite you here to make just 2 comments before I invite Dr. Mumonzao. Ayatollah, please.
Thank you, Professor, for promoting me to an Ayatollah. This is a great occasion. Dr. Mustafa Ali and your team, the Reverend, who is also a team there in many ways. Dr. Mumo is out. One time, a long time ago, we used to be classmates. This is great. And as has been said, taking stock is important. And since I've been given a chance to say something, let me make a distinction between 2 concepts. Sometimes have been used as if they are the same, interchangeably. One of them is Majimbo, and the other one is Devolution. They are not the same. Historically, Majimbo was promotion of division and hostility. It was very prominent between 1961, after the February 1961 election, in which Kadu lost badly, despite what had been promoted as a way of 40 against 2. That's what it was. Since that project, the Mzungu settler project, that it was failed, there came thereafter an emphasis, because in future, you have an election, the winners are going to be the wrong people, the two, because it was proven. So a future government of independent Kenya that was now being talked about openly should be weakened before it even starts. That's how the Majimbo debate came about. And it was promoted as anti. There used to be a fellow called Bwana Firimbi, who used to blow his whistle, and then his followers would come out with their rungus and pangas and beat up people in the name of Majimbo. We saw that in the build-up to the multi-party system. And some people try to revive that. And the good thing is that they were called out. I know I was one of those people who insisted the use term Majimbo is a code for violence. To avoid the linkage between violence called Majimbo and now what we have, devolution. So we started talking about Ugatuzi instead of Majimbo. And in talking about Ugatuzi, it resonated. There was no hostility. It was acceptable. Because devolution is empowerment. And when devolution is empowerment, there are a lot of Kenyans who thought that devolution was a big CDF. Only now at the county level. Why? Because they had seen CDF work. And if it's going to be like that, then it's a good thing. And the division that the suggestion about for 7 counties, it was a good thing, the basis for it, you can argue about it. But it was accepted as empowerment with objectives, in my mind. The counties will become so strong if they are run properly. If governors and others people don't spend their time stealing. The resources being pumped into the counties from the national government, this is an investment in the country. When the counties become very strong and very rich, they will be contributing more money to the national government than the government. So there's a mutual benefit. And so devolution is a very good thing. And if there are any people who want to fight it, they're out of their mind. But it should not be confused to imagine that counties are bigger than national government. They are not. They are subordinate to the national government, which has the mandate to look after the interests of everyone in the country, from every corner. And that's why there is a clause somewhere. In case a county misbehaves, it can be dissolved. You cannot dissolve a national government unless this distinction should be understood. So devolution is a very good thing as an empowerment organ, and people are not wrong to imagine it maybe as a bigger CDF because people have seen CDF work. So that distinction I thought should be made. We did not start with a Majimbo structure because that was an imposition by the British government. And the winning party said it openly, not behind the scenes, that when we get into power, because we're going to get into power, first order of business, abolish this thing. And when, after May 1963, the election, and Kanu won as expected, first thing they did is to go back to Lancaster, to the same British. He said, can we change these things? We made a mistake. And you know you are going. And the same British agreed. They were very happy. Change this, change this. So the weakening of it did not even wait for independence. It was immediate. And within a year, the same people who in car do dissolve themselves. The reasons for it is another matter. And they benefited with ministerial appointments. More became, Anna became. So, and there was no, it appears as if the people who were talking Majimbo, in reality they did not believe in it because it was a possibility. Let me not confuse that. Thank you very much, Professor, for giving me an opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, academic good manners require that we respect people of this caliber. So allow me to invite Dr. Mumonzao. And before I give him the opportunity, I want just to echo what Professor Wanyande talked about. That to mobilize the kind of brains behind this book is not an easy task. So I want to appreciate Doc here for his diplomatic, because scholars of our belonging are very arrogant. Not that we are arrogant, but academics bother us. So ideologically we are restless, which others mistake us as arrogance, right? So he's able to overcome that kind of ideologies which others mistake, and our levels of confidence are also significantly high, which others with lower capacity mistake us that we are proud. Welcome, Doc.
My senior scholars, colleagues, friends, invitees, we are all, with chapter contributors, the authors of this book. So grateful to have all of you here. Mine is, I'm feeling like when your grandfather comes home and, the elders have spoken. There's not much to be said. You just feel they have said it. And that's how I feel. Because as scholars, we are taught to be humble. You stand on the shoulders of the great so that you can see far. Some of us who have been brought up, they know us since we were much younger, academics. These scholars who have spoken before me trained us all through. And so for me is to thank them for this privilege of being the editor of this piece. And to say that it's a good thing that what Professor Wanyande said, because we are looking at who will tell the story. Well, is there going to be a reference point one day? In 2015, and when Professor Olo actually graced to be, Professor Adams Olo graced to the occasion as the keynote speaker, he said, where are we going to be having a reference point? And people are excited about the devolution. There was not much to look back to and say this is what, and then we started building the journey. And this is where now you can see the debate. Our head of state called it a First Amendment proposition. And you find that kind of First Amendment second, even in the United States. You look back and say, how far have we come? And I think this is a debate that should engender growth, development, cohesion as we go on. I think Professor Mulene was not saying that the national government is going to be talking down on the county governments, but they are complementary. They are going to be complementary, and that's what the Constitution prescribes. Now, the constitutional amendment that made Kenya to be a unitary state, Constitutional Amendment number 28 of 1964. Then the Constitution amended 33 times thereafter until 2010 and so on. And if you want them to enjoy those differences between Ugatuzi, Bimbo, and that whole story, it is in this book. And we first broke down the concept before we got into that. And mine is to thank you and to ask the Master of Ceremony, Professor Johnny, to welcome us now to the launch moment. Thank you very, very much.
So we are now moving to the critical stage. I will want to invite Dr. Mustafa Ali to come in front. I invite Dr. Mumund Zhao to come in front. I invite Professor Peter Wanyande to come in front. I invite Dr. Hassan Kanenge to come in front. And we will all join as I count from 4, 5, going to 1, as music will also complement my request. So may I also invite Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia to come in front. Professor Macharia Munene, please come in front also. Professor Benzianya, come in front, please. So as they come in front, I think line up for a picture. You can maintain social distance and then you do the necessary. You appear well arranged in the photo. So the camera will start rolling. Yes. You can aim for some quiet still. Very good. Excellent. All right. So may I begin calling? When I reach 1, you join us here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Join us, come for join us. Excellent, excellent. Right, may we resume our positions? And before I invite the vote of thanks, I want us to allow our entertainment just one quick song to accompany the launch. So, DJ, please. Song.
Yes, I'm able to. Okay. Yeah, you can now. Yeah, I can. All right, cool it down. Can we have the video? Just play on the ground the video, please. Just wait.
All right, very good. So I want to invite the editor, Dr. Gonzalo, to begin the signing ceremony. Carry on music.
Replay sana lakini bila sound. Alafu naendelea from now.
May I invite all chapter contributors, coming from for a photo? Dr. Gideon Yanko, all chapter contributors, please. All chapter contributors.
I don't know, he didn't give the reason. Let me check it. Okay, let's see it from here. The camera
Yeah, very good.
smile for the camera. Kaonekana. Watch it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now coming to the end of the ceremony, and allow me to invite Dr. Mustafa Ali, the chairman and the co-founder of ON, International Institute for Strategic Studies, to pass a vote of thanks. After his vote of thanks, you may now network and enjoy refreshments then you leave at your own pleasure. So my contract has ended. I'm handing power peacefully to Dr. Mustafa.
Thank you, Professor Jono, for, as you put it, handing over power peacefully. There's an ongoing challenge in the Horn of Africa, and indeed Africa, that leaders are now increasingly not willing to hand over power peacefully. And we've just had challenges in a few countries in this region. I want to thank the team and the teams that made this work, Herculean task, to be completed today. Dr. Munozao, the way you have approached this work, engaged scholars, worked with the publisher, and basically financed this book to the product it is today. It is a lot of work, and congratulations for making your contributions to this country, to unpack, taking stock of devolution. Devolution in itself is an ideology. If you heard Professor Anyang Nyong'o speaking, Reverend Sam Kobia in particular used the term software several times, not once, not twice, but several times. And software is the ideology. You may have the hardware, but if you don't have the software to run that hardware, then what you have as hardware is just like a piece of, it's just like tin. This nation and the counties are the hardwares, but that software to actually run the nation and the counties is something that we are continuously taking stock of, critiquing, constructively infusing more ideas. Ideology is a system of ideas and ideals that form the basis of political, economic, defense, policy. Without ideology, there can never be coherence in a nation or in a county. And Horn Institute is particularly pleased to work with scholars in building a network of scholars and experts to continuously critique and add value to these ideologies. When you see that this all that you have here is a sharp eye, so we continue to refocus the ideologies, the ideas and ideals that should be forming the basis of policy, not just in this country, but in the Horn of Africa. And I want to urge and encourage the scholars to continue with this focus, bringing everything under the microscope. For example, we should not have been in a situation where one of the leading counties in this Kenya, Nairobi, which is not just a county, but a county that hosts a capital that is a hub in the whole region being run by a fugitive. I know there are constitutional provisions that should have prevented this kind of situation, but scholars and experts should have done more to work with policymakers to ensure that such kind of a situation do not arise, and actually is never repeated in this country. It's always work in progress. So I want to thank all of you for taking your time to write and come up with a book. Professor Fred Jono, Arsene Kanenje, Professor Ben Sihanya, Professor Wanyande, Mumonzawa, and everybody that has contributed to writing or editing this book. I want to, on behalf of the Horn Institute, dearly thank you. one person who is a dear friend. I've worked with him for a very long time, Reverend Dr. Sam Kobia. I want to thank you for always giving us and encouraging us to continue thinking and to continue finessing this software that will help all of us in this country, in this nation, and in the counties, the 47 counties. I want to thank you, and we are very happy and proud and really blessed to have you as the person that is running the National Cohesion Commission, especially at this time when we are moving towards an election, which potentially could mean anything between what happened in 2007, 2008, or 2002. So thank you very much, Professor Dr. Reverend Sam Kobia, for encouraging us and serving as the Council of Advisor at the Horn Institute, and also a de facto patron of the Horn Institute. Not made that official, but we will be making that official when we have every facet of the Horn Institute structure in place in the coming months. Please pass my regards to Professor Anyang Nyong for being the guest of honor and giving us the keynote address in this particular launch. May I end with a word of encouragement to our scholars again. Take advantage of the Horn Institute. It is not your average usual think tank that we have. It's a think, do tank. And it's a network of scholars and experts in Kenya and the entire region. So I want to welcome all of you to be a part of the Horn Institute. It is organic. We prioritize organic knowledge generation, and that can only be done by scholars like yourselves in order to be effective, or in order for our policymakers to be effective in sharpening those policies that affect our daily lives. Thank you very much.